Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Let's Play The Great Ace Attorney. Beim letzten Mal konnten wir den guten Eggert Benedict vor Gericht rufen, der auch gar nicht so heißt tatsächlich, sondern Graydon. Ja, wir sind jetzt jedenfalls mal direkt an seinem nächsten Kreuzfeuer dran und schauen mal, wie es weitergeht. Genau, er meinte halt, dass ihm die Disk gehört. Genau, dass er die nur abholen wollte und dass die Polizei das dann mitgenommen hat. Deswegen hat er ja gar keinen Grund gehabt, nochmal versuchen einzubrechen. Okay, also warum steht jetzt halt vor McGilde drauf, wenn es dir gehört? Would you care to explain how this belongs to you? As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir. So you see, I have little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties, having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand. Which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question. You claim that was your overcoat. Obviously, and in my haste I clean forgot, dass er dir nicht passt. Oder bist du seitdem gewachsen, seit du ihn abgegeben hast? Das wird's wohl sein, ne? The music box disc was in its pocket. And yet, there's a note on it that reads for McGilded. Richtig, das ist die große Frage. Warum steht das da drauf? I'm a collector of rare and unusual music box discs. I first met Mr. McGilded at a gentleman's club in the city and was interested to discover that he shared my penchant in that area. So the disc in question, it's a pre-production sample. I promised that Mr. McGill would hear it. But then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn. Was er sich für Lügen ausdenkt, das ist doch alles ausgedacht von Anfang bis Ende. Er strickt sich das wirklich schön zusammen halt, er ist richtig gut da drin. She didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she? No, because McGill has threatened her to keep her mouth shut. Which means that if we dig too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury. Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it? Let's leave it alone for the time being. Na super. Das ist aber alles so ein Blödsinn, den er redet, oder? Also, wie hat sie das geklaut, huh? So you're saying that Mrs. Stroud lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag? That's right. Despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious area, a kind frequent...
Objection!
Okay, und woher kannte sie dann das Passwort? Mrs. Stroud did not know such thing. Well, of course you would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender. You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you need to identify the defendant. You are looking for her. That's what brought you to Windy Banks. Get your hands on Mr. McGilded's disc.
Objection!
My learned friend is a veritable fond of nonsense. Nonsense. Yes, nonsense. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear? Yes, my lord. Then I will continue with my testimony. Das würde ich jetzt auch anzweifeln, aber mich interessiert erstmal. Wir machen jetzt mal hier, weil das interessiert mich von Anfang an schon am meisten und ich will den Rest jetzt nicht alles durchgehen, obwohl ich es vielleicht gar nicht muss. No, not at all. Oh? Valio was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was common or garden, bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilded's disc. Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. There was no more in the shop that night, and I, as I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. So there was nothing of McGilded's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. Blödsinn, es gab noch eine zweite Disc. I wonder if that's really true. Dann habe ich halt keine Beweise. Habe ich dafür Beweise? There's no doubt about it. That witness is lying. Ja, ich weiß. But Grexy's being very strange about all this. There must be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. Ja, wir gucken mal ganz kurz. Also angeblich sollen wir vielleicht Beweise haben. Hat sie auch gerade angesprochen zumindest. Ich wüsste halt nicht was. Das ist die Disk. Ich habe keinen Beweis für eine zweite Disk, glaube ich. Owned by the victim, Mr. Windybank. The blood on it has been identified as Mr. Mason's. Ach so, was war da nochmal drauf? Ah ja, das war, der Overcoat. Ach. Dass da Mr. Masons Blatt drauf ist, könnte halt widersprechen irgendwas. Aber ich weiß nicht, das ist ja nicht dagegen. Nur wogegen könnte ich es anwenden am sinnvollsten? Das wäre zumindest mal eine Idee. One small box, das gibt es natürlich auch noch. Steht auch drauf, von wem das ist. Nee, ne? Da ist so eine Katze drauf auch. Ja. Mysteriös, mysteriös. Dann belassen wir es erstmal da, aber wir gucken uns noch die anderen beiden an, würde ich sagen, bevor ich irgendwelchen Blödsinn mache, ja? Meistens bereue ich sonst im Nachhinein, vor allem wenn man wenig Leben hat. Only once for the purposes of pawning something, but like many I enjoy browsing in such establishments. So when you notice that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chase after her. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, of course. Such is the art of the pick purse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbroker at once in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place. Okay, ja, das passt hier auch gut hin. Warte mal. Redeem my article. Ah, was stolen from me. Okay, hier ist der, ja, hier werde ich das anwenden müssen, oder? Come on. Oder nicht? Nicht? Mann! Ja, dann sehen wir uns gleich wieder. Ich leite den Spielstand. Das ist so eine Kacke. Ach, wie wär's mit dem hier? Oder dem? Warum muss ich hier das Ticket nutzen? Nee, das ergibt gar keinen Sinn. Boah, ich weiß es nicht. Es ist eins von beidem auf jeden Fall. Also sage ich jetzt, vielleicht ist es auch nicht eins von beidem. Oder er wollte das Manuskript haben. Ich werde das so sehr bereuen, egal was ich jetzt wähle. Ich habe ja wieder 5 Leben. Stefan, habe ich wieder 5 Leben. Das fällt mir gerade jetzt erst auf. Da hätte ich ja gar nicht starten müssen unbedingt. Ja, dann kann ich jetzt Sachen machen. Das ist es auf jeden Fall nicht gewesen. Dann probieren wir es halt mit der kleinen Box. Wow, okay. This disc was deposited at Windybanks on Magnus McGillis' instructions. You knew that and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself. Objection! Conjecture again. In any case, this was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night. Objection! Sorry, my learned friend. Oh, but that's not true. Hast du ihn etwa my learned friend genannt? What? Das ist mein Name für dich. Mr. McGill had another article in pawn at Windybanks. As this second pawnbroker's ticket proves. There were 2 articles belonging to Mr. McGill at Windybanks' pawnbrokery. And the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one. Together with your 2 accomplices, the Skulkin brothers. This is a second ticket, is it? What had the man deposited? The article description reads, one small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me. He's suggesting that I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box. I believe that adequate grounds to suspect that you did. This is absurd. Oh no, would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There would be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. That's a good point. Indeed. The witness makes a solid argument, außer jemand anderes wollte das auch haben. Aus irgendeinem Grund. So that means that for some reason, this Graydon fellow needed the small box that very night, does it? Das ist auch eine interessante Idee.
Objection!
Was denn? It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord. Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Van Zeeks? I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. Not that in question, no small box was taken from Windybank's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it. Wie? Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court, if you please. Yes, sir. What prints? These prints were taken from one of the detective's security cameras. Können wir sich einfach bitte alle Bilder erstmal angucken? Alle, von Anfang bis Ende. The victim's establishment was furnished with automatic cameras in 2 locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Windybank received his customers. The other was set to capture the shelves on which articles were placed for sale once forfeited. Ja, aber da waren sie ja noch gar nicht. Also die kleine Box war ja noch im Lagerraum wahrscheinlich. According to the information on this ticket, Magild's small box had been forfeited already. 2 days before the incident. Achso, 2 Tage davor, never mind. Das war die Disc, die danach forfeited worden wäre. Which means it would have been on the shelves of forfeited items in the shop front. Now what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. That's at 11 PM on 15th April. Okay. The victim certainly had a very full job, it would appear. So, und es sieht wahrscheinlich genauso aus. I see. So we have 2 pictures to compare. Ja, los, schielt meine Kinder, schielt. Dear me, that's starting to make my head ache. Obviously, it's Scotland Yard. We consider the theft as one possible motive in this case. There's more the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life. So your men have already compared these 2 prints thoroughly, Inspector? Yes, sir. We can every single item in each of these 2 photographic prints. Da muss irgendwas gehen, was ihr übersehen habt. Wow, ihr habt gezählt. Exactly the same number are present in both. Vielleicht wurde auch etwas ausgetauscht, du Genie. In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question. And my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy. Nein, Mann. Lass mich die Bilder mir nochmal angucken. Auf rum zu tanzen. You know what, Bruno? I've been thinking. Wurde eine kleine Box irgendwo ausgetauscht. Nein, sind natürlich nicht dieselben Bilder. Da ist natürlich ein Unterschied. Ich weiß nur nicht was. Ich würde so wissen, wenn ich schielen könnte. Richtig. Weil bisher sehe ich den Unterschied auf jeden Fall noch nicht. Aber ich gehe gerade alles durch. Nee. Das finde ich so doch nicht. Weiß auch gar nicht, was es für eine smalle Box ist, die hier fehlt. What? So, counsel, in the light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? Do you accept the prosecution's assertion? I don't know. Could there be some hidden discrepancy in these 2 photographic prints somewhere? Ja, ich use a piece of evidence. Was für ein Evidence denn dagegen, Mann? Ach so, vielleicht. Kann ich das hier als Evidence verwenden? Weiß es nicht. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something if I may. Okay, used to help you. Ja, dann wird's das sein. Danke. Hallo, ich wollte das nutzen.
Take that!
I like to use this device, my lord, to view the two prints stereoscopically. Oh! Yes, you've caught the bug at last. You can't resist it, can you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion. Juror number 3, what a surprise. Come on, Runo. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. Ja, bin kurz davor, es zu sehen. Oh, was? Wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these two prints. Habe ich echt nicht bemerkt. Ja, wo ist die Discrepancy? Bloß, da oben müsste sie sein, weil die Uhrzeiten sich überlappen.
Take that!
Ich würde gerne nochmal beide Bilder nebeneinander sehen gleich. However, there's one minor discrepancy between them. What? So, jetzt. Ach, die Box wurde verschoben. Das ist es. Ja, deswegen habe ich es auch nicht bemerkt. Also okay, die Box wurde tatsächlich nicht geklaut, sie wurde nur bewegt. Was heißt, dass sie vielleicht genutzt wurde, geöffnet wurde und irgendwas wurde rausgenommen oder sowas in die Richtung, keine Ahnung. A single area stands out as being different. The location of this small box. Let me... Wait. Unbelievable. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary. What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilder's small box was indeed not stolen from Windy Banks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned to its place on the shelves. Are you suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilder is in fact... Yes, the very same small box that just identified in those photographic prints.
Objection!
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So box was moved on the shelf, nothing was stolen, which means quite simply that nothing had changed. That may be true, but... Alright, McGilder's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved like that change things? It changes everything! I believe this changes everything about the case. How can that possibly be? The crucial point in the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Winnie Banks as we speak.
Objection!
That won't be necessary. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. Ja, genau. Weil die Disk ja auch nicht relevant für diesen Fall sein kann, ne? Genau. The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Van Zieks. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination. Ich meine, small box ist zumindest besser als small bombs, würde ich sagen. Bombs and food. Nicht so böse. Dem fehlt das echt gar nicht, ne? We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth. To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Huh. Disappointing. I beg your pardon, Lord Van Zieks. This is nothing but a smoke screen. An Japanese specialty, it would seem. Ja, natürlich. What are you trying to say? My learned friend is persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning. That this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilder from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place. gesagt, vielleicht brauchte er das, was in der Box ist, in dieser Nacht aus irgendeinem Grund. Be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property. Muss ja nicht um Geldwert gehen, der dahinter gesteckt hat. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGill perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was an upstanding member of society, his reputation implied, in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense. For fuck's sake. The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat just happened to have a music box disc in one of his pockets and a small box. Hast du gerade gesagt? The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. Und dann sagst du a black overcoat. Also. Der dir gehört, der Black Overcoat übrigens, ne? I assure you I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. Das hat er doch gesagt. You know, that does make rather a lot of sense. It's not as if it was gold or jewels, is it? Oh, goodness knows, Mr. McGill was rich enough. The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. Ich meine, das... Hä? Hat er nicht gerade zugegeben, dass ihm die Jacke nicht gehört? Was er bisher immer behauptet hat? Ich verstehe gar nichts mehr. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by the fine citizen could have. Well, counsel, is the argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof? Well, maybe, I don't know, ich müsste. What's the matter, Reno? You know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Yes, of course. You and I both know that. We know McGillet's true character and we know the disc is significant. Even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGillet's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. The defense's argument was flawed, based on false information. Das willst du wirklich nicht zugeben, huh? Oh no. And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. Ja, okay, das gehört auch dazu. But Ginny... Could it be that Van Six knows? And is that why he's doing this now? Because I anticipated everything? Er ist so klug. Maybe. This could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry, do you mean Iris? What do you mean, Iris? Well, what is it that you always say, Reno? Sooner or later, the truth comes out, every time. Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGill deposited with Mr. Windybank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. If I put her on the stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chance of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here? Ja, wir haben keine Wahl, oder? My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal. Oh, what proposal, counsel? Well, the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGillet's small box. I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand. The defendant? To what end? It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windybanks by Mr. McGillet, my lord. Mrs. Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the article in question, once and for all. Well, well, things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implication of the testimony you're proposing. In particular, the impact it will have on the accused standing, and indeed your own. I have. Lord Van Six, would you care to explain that last remark? The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. Move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself. Sehr gerne, very well. If you have no objection, blah blah. So, the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Mrs. Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Ja, aber hau bloß nicht ab, du. Wie er immer noch so tut, als würde er irgendwas mit seinem Hut machen, den er gar nicht mehr aufhat. Hab ich den Hut jetzt eigentlich echt die ganze Zeit bei mir gehabt? Der hat ja jetzt am Anfang zu mir geworfen. You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Mrs. Lestrade testifies. As you wish. Okay, alright then, Gina. It's time. I know this will be hard, but please, put your faith in me here. Good luck, Bruno. Ja, Glück werde ich brauchen. The articles that Mr. McGildet had deposited in Winniebank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in this courtroom 2 months ago. Yes, and I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well. That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGildet. The omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least. And now here we all are again, the same players in that trial facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Lebanese friend. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGildet, ja, und Gina. But as the trial progressed, another possibility emerged. That the murder in fact took place above the defendant's head on the roof deck, with the body then being dropped through the skylight and the carriage below. It was Mr. Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Mrs. Lestrade was concealed under a seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGildet died in this very courtroom in the most extraordinary of circumstances. A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on. As indeed, that does the omnibus murder itself. Be that as it may, I recall neither the disc nor the small box being mentioned in the course of those proceedings. Mrs. Lestrade? Would you tell the court now, please? What really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago, I mean? Ungerne wahrscheinlich. I know what you mean. I already said all of what I know. And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Mrs. Lestrade. This is extremely important. Jetzt sie wirklich einfach so direkt sagen. Wow. But remember, little girl, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information at the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. Ja, eben, also, naja, aber wir haben vielleicht keine Wahl gerade. Ist vielleicht besser als des Mordes angeklagt zu sein, ha? And naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts, you have little credibility to lose. Ja, wohl wahr. Ginny, don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Runa now. Iris, you're on your side. Alright then, I'll talk. It's the right choice, Gina. Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears, so be it. I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. However, it would appear that Mr. McGildet pawned articles and the extraordinary case of the omnibus harbors secrets of which we have been hitherto unaware. So, Mrs. Lestrade, you will now give your testimony before the court about the events of 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, a commodity sorely lacking in the original statements. Hey, das weißt du noch gar nicht. This could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears, but as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take that risk. Oh ja, oh Gott, okay. Mal schauen. Sagt jetzt wirklich einfach alles. Truth is, the brickmaker Cove was in the cabin, the omnibus the whole time. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw the disc on the floor. All of a sudden, I heard a scream from over me head, and the pair of the roof deck went off to call the slopes. That's when McGildet slipped the driver something to do and run to the pawn shop roundabout. He threatened me not to snitch, and to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Good grief, this is outrageous! What you've just told the court bears almost no resemblance to your testimony 2 months ago. As you say, my lord. There's every chance. We've adjudicated an error in McGildet's trial, was nicht so schlimm ist, weil eh tot ist. It sounds very much to me as if the man deliberately deceived this court, in an effort to cover up the most wicked of schemes. Without doubt, your lordship is correct. A great injustice was done in this courtroom 2 months ago. The actions of the accused and the trial of the witness and of my learned friend are entirely inexcusable. War ja keine Absicht von mir. Ist ja nicht so, als hättest du nicht schon mal Leute bestimmt zu Unrecht verklagt. Verurteilt. Egal. You're wrong. The lawyer, yeah? Mr. Naraodo, the lawyer there. He didn't know nothing about it. Humbug. I don't think so. I was really expected to believe that. You really stitched everyone up, didn't he? What an operation to get the man off scot-free. Unforgivable, stop. The lies have to stop. Yes, the defense made a terrible error of judgment. To take full responsibility and suffer whatever consequences are deemed appropriate. However, it's imperative that the court allows the witness to elaborate on the testimony, because the true significance of Mr. McGildet's pawned articles must be brought to light. Very well, my learned student friend. Given the depths of calamity you have just plunged yourself into, this may well be worth hearing. Auch wenn man jetzt eigentlich wahrscheinlich auch kein großes Vertrauen mehr in mich hat, hä? Zumindest die Jury nicht auch. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord. Blimey, Mr. Naraodo. Now, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination. Ich weiß gar nicht, was ich hier machen soll bei ihr. Na gut. Ich denke, wir werden einfach erstmal wie immer anfangen. Es gibt erstmal nichts, was ich irgendwie direkt widerlegen kann, weil ich meine, wir wissen ja, dass es die Wahrheit ist, oder wir gehen zumindest davon aus, also was soll ich schon tun? If I remember rightly, the storage compartment underneath one of the seats. Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. Now, in the testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain that you claim Mr. McGildet was the sole passenger, did you not? False testimony, my lord. It's what he told me, I had to say. But it's important that you tell us the truth now. When Mr. McGildet and the victim acquaintances. I don't know. But I hear him talking a lot. What was I talking about? I couldn't hear too well. Whatever to say. I think it was about money or something. They kept talking about buying, not buying. Oh, about business dealings of some kind. Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. Started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then. I hardly dared to breathe, and then, all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone killing over the floor. This blew me loud and all. I believe you let out an involuntary scream. Yeah. That's what gave me away. Ja, das passt ja an sich grundlegend. Also, das Ende davon.
Hold it!
What's the disc you saw? This disc? Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor. Could this disc have belonged to the victim, perhaps? I don't know, but McGildet picked it up pretty smartish. And then he set the cove with a knife in his belly up on the seat. What did he say to you at the time? Told me to say a word about what I'd seen or heard to no one. But the disc and all. Ich habe so langsam das Gefühl, dass auf der Disc gar keine Musik drauf ist, wisst ihr? Ich weiß nicht, was da drauf ist, aber keine Musik vielleicht. Irgendein großes Geheimnis wurde darauf als Sprachbotschaft aufgenommen, keine Ahnung. Like what my name was and where I lived and all that. He asked me about being a diver too. After a while, what had happened to the carriage was noticed. Yeah, that's right. First was a kind of rapping noise. But jemand hat gerappt? Oh, interessant.
Hold it!
There were two gentlemen occupying the seats on the roof deck, I believe. That's right. Ja, die beiden kenne ich noch zu gut. Vor allem den linken da, der war ja auch schon mehrmals jetzt in der Jury. Oder zumindest einmal. Naja. Ist er jetzt gerade nicht auch in der Jury? There was a look down through the skylight and noticed a cove with the knife in its guts. When they screamed, the driver pulled up the oars and McGilder got me out of sight. Out of sight? Where? Back under the seat where I started off. Once the carriage came to an halt, the two coasts from the roof ran off to fetch the slopes. If they immediately left to fetch the police, it would appear they were entirely unrelated to the incident. So that if Mr. McGildet, the driver and you still at the scene. Yeah, and the driver didn't know I was there because I was under the seat. Oh, the cabin door opened and the voice from outside. The driver, yes. He also testified in the trial, I believe. Ja, genau. A fellow who went by the name of Beppo, if memory serves, der sich auch bestechen lassen hat und so. Genau der. What did McGillet and the driver say to each other? I know what happened and stuff like that mainly. Wow, wie glaubwürdig. Genau, das ist was passiert. The pawn shop obviously being Winnie Banks on Baker Street. Just a moment, counsel. Do you mean to tell me the driver gave false testimony in that trial as well? Ja, natürlich. So, excursion to the pawnbrokery slipped his mind when he was on the stand. Indeed, Lord Van Zeeks. Nicola took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up all careful like before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking, that coat and what's in it gotta be worth a few bob. Yes, Gina was sure that it must be worth more than Mr. Winniebank was suggesting, wasn't she? I remember quibbling with him over the price that afternoon at the pawnbrokery. The driver looked pretty happy when McGilder flashed some brass in his face. We went running off the lake. Then Bog Trotter called to me and told me to come out from the Drax cabin. Hier weiß ja wirklich alles nicht weiter. Threatened you how exactly? Tim might only be able to discover if I did exactly what he said. Which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago. Yeah, that's it. There was one other thing he said. Which was? He told me to have to hang onto the ticket from the pawn shop. Make sure not to lose it. The ticket? Well, I never. Said that if I didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay the money to keep it in luck. Stop it from being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for it. But really? Wonder what Mr. McGildet have done such a thing. Depositing this overcoat of a pawnbroker before the arrival of the police. It makes no sense at all. There would seem to be only one logical explanation, my lord. But McGildet had the driver deposit of Windy Banks was something he didn't want the police to see. Yeah. Something very important that he needed to hide at all costs. Anyway, after that he let me go, so I liked it before the copper showed up. Well done, Gina. Can't have been easy to tell the truth like that. She just really put her faith in you, Bruno. He hasn't to thank her. She'll have to face a charge of perjury once this trial is over. So if you use the time we have now to get as much information out of her as possible. Then really go for it. Press on every statement ich weiß, habe ich getan. Was machen die beiden da? Take a look at those two. Is it strange that they've been whispering to each other the entire time? Yes, it is strange. It looks like they're having a secret discussion about something. Warum tun sie das? Gregson? Kann ich irgendwas damit tun? Das ist die Frage. Ich habe keine Reaktion oder so gesehen, die mir helfen würde, auf sie direkt einzugehen. Ich kann halt hier rüber gehen und dann... Ach, wollt ihr euch reden so? Is there something you'd like to share with the court, Inspector Gregson, Mr. Graydon? Oh, das geht wirklich. Inspector, Mr. Graydon. Blimey, you're trying to give me a heart attack. You have been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about? Discussion? With this fella? Pull the other one, sunshine. You think I've got anything to talk about with a shady gent like this? Vertraust du mir also auch nicht, huh? I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after he deprived me of the disc that was rightfully mine. They've clearly been talking the entire time I've been cross-examining Gina. As if they've been negotiating. Aber worüber? Thank you, Mrs. Strahd. Thank you, Counsel. I've heard enough. I believe we now have a reasonable understanding of what actually transpired on the omnibus. It would appear on that night 2 months ago, a negotiation was taking place on the omnibus. Negotiation concerning this disc, however matters did not run smoothly. When the parties involved began to quarrel over price, McGilda took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life. Which proves my point, that this is clearly extremely valuable in some way, although I don't understand why as yet. And 2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the omnibus incident, McGilda's code and its contents were due to be forfeited. I didn't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, the calf died right after its trial. I knew that. So you decided you would try to claim the articles as your own. Well, why not, eh? They were only going to be forfeited. Why should I have got them, Anyway, you can't blame me for thinking about it. Thinking ain't no crime. Mrs. Strahd, it would appear Mr. McGilda was prepared to kill, not take possession of this disc. Do you know why that would be? I reckon it must be worth a fair bit of brass. He's probably gonna sell it. Yeah, I can't blame me for thinking that. Thinking ain't no crime. Ja, denken ist okay. Denken darfst du tun. My lord. Oh, oh, hi. Oh, die Box. Die kleine Box ist da. Oh. The mysterious little box deposited by Mr. McGilda 2 months ago. There's no doubt in my mind. It's a key piece in this far-reaching puzzle. Ja, davon gehe ich auch aus. Nicht nur du. To be continued. Auch wenn ich nicht weiß, wie viel wir wirklich so damit anfangen können gerade. Davon ausgehend, dass, naja, da wahrscheinlich nichts mehr drin ist halt. Mal sehen, wie viel wir dann wirklich noch daran jetzt finden. Wie viele Hinweise die Box noch verbirgt. So, this is the article in question, is it? The small box deposited with the pawnbrokers by Mr. McGilda 2 months ago. On the night of Mr. Windybank's murder. The only item on the shelves that was touched by whoever broke into the shop. Quick, quick, let's open it and see what's inside. Oh. 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 Das war eine Idee, die ich hatte. Das war tatsächlich eine Idee, die ich hatte. Ich wollte sie nicht aussprechen, weil sie mir zu blöd vorkam. Also, das war nicht genau die Idee, die ich hatte. Ich dachte halt, da könnte ja ein Mini-Plattenspieler drin sein, den man mitnehmen kann. Und da hat er den Mini-Plattenspieler geklaut, um die Platte abzuspielen oder so. Keine Ahnung, aber das ganze Teil ist einfach ein Mini-Plattenspieler. Das ist natürlich einiges. Und da gibt auch mehr Sinn als Mini-Plattenspieler, der da drin aufbewahrt wurde, auf jeden Fall. Wow, although in truth, I had an inkling that might be the case. War also mein Gedanke, als er gemeint hat, dass, ja, er wohl diese Box in dieser Nacht gebraucht hat, sofort, aus irgendeinem Grund. Und was könnte er gebrauchen? Und wohl etwas, was man verwenden kann auch. Aber dann nachgedacht, könnte es ein Schlüssel sein oder sowas in die Richtung. Und ja, ein Plattenspiel oder sowas in die Richtung kam mir sinnvoll vor, weil es halt die ganze Zeit um Music Discs ging. Then, is it too much to expect? I think it would be reasonable to assume that it is a device for the playback of this disc, my lord. Können wir sie abspielen? So, here we have the means to play back Mr. McGill's disc deposited at Windy Banks at much the same time. Not strictly correct, my lord. It was not McGildett's disc. It was the disc of his victim in the omnibus. But why, for heaven's sake? Are we to understand that the brickmaker was trying to sell this music box disc to Mr. McGildet? So klingt das auf jeden Fall. I believe the answer will become clear if we listen to the music on the disc, my lord. Yes, very well. Let the court now listen to this curious disc at last.
Hold it!
Nicht? Wait, my lord. Was? Warum nicht? The music box and disc are, well, they're unrelated to the case. Die haben irgendwas mit einem anderen Fall zu tun, ne? Die haben irgendwas hiermit zu tun. Government Secrets sind da drauf. Ja. Da bin ich mir so sicher. No need to spoil the somber atmosphere in the courtroom with some silly bit of music.
Objection!
This disc may very well have motivated the culprit in this case to commit murder. Clearly there's every chance that it's fundamentally important to understanding what happened. The prosecution has no objection. But no, that piece of evidence is police property now. Clearly Scotland Yard has some vested interest here. But it's policy of this prosecutor to leave no avenues unexplored. And you, Inspector, have no jurisdiction here to prevent that from happening. No further delays, please. Play the disc. Oh no. Oh no. Das ist wirklich nur Musik. Oh, what on earth? That's certainly not what I would call music. Ist das ein Morsecode oder so? No. It's just the same note playing over and over again in an irregular sequence. Ja, das ist Morsecode oder so. Mr. Graydon. This really is priceless. Ja, also er kann dazu tanzen auf jeden Fall. After all that, the music box is broken. Bezweifle ich, das ist es nicht. Nein, das ist Morsecode. Broken? Can't be, can it? Well, obviously. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. If the officer sent to fetch it didn't drop it on the way back to the courtroom. Well, with much regret, I feel the court must accept that this music box offers little in the way of clues. Are you to move on, counsel? Come on. Yes, alright. It does sound as though it's completely broken, but is it? Could this music emanating from the music box possibly be a new clue? Ja, es ist natürlich ein Clue. I believe that it could be relevant, my lord. Good lord, but how can it be? It's an abomination, counsel. Mere noise. This yacht can't have any meaning whatsoever. Does sound strange, I agree. But there's one thing bothering me. While Graydon stands there chortling victoriously, the inspector beside him has a rather telling expression on his face. As if Gregson recognizes the sound, as if he's familiar with it somehow. This making him appear extremely on edge. If there's a stance of the defense, my Japanese friend, answer me this. Just what relevance do you propose this woeful chiming as on this case? It's a defense belief that the sound emanating from this music box is an unusual genre of music, not supposed to be music. Just because this is a music box, it doesn't necessarily mean the sounds we're hearing are music. Look at that, the smile vanished from Graydon's lips as soon as I said it. I'm on the right lines here, must be. Haha, making deductions based on how people react to what you say. You're acting just like Holly, Runo.
Objection!
Das ist wohl wahr. Jetzt muss ich nur noch darauf achten, wo sie hingucken. The sounds we're hearing aren't necessarily music. Well, now that you've told us what they are not. I'm sure the court would like to hear what they are, to enlighten us, Winnie's friend. Surely you have an idea in mind, because if not, it will be the death of your ill-formed argument. The music box is clearly broken, refusing to accept that fact is pure foolishness. Ich weiß, was die Antwort ist. And I'm fairly certain that it's not broken at all. Really? Really? The way it's been made can only produce a single note anyway. Thank you, Iris. Deswegen passt es auch da in die kleine Box rein, ha? Alright, well, if the music box isn't broken, it must mean that the sound it's producing have some significance that isn't musical. Kann ich wieder einen Hinweis nutzen? Ah. Could it be? Is that what these sounds are? I feel like recently, in the past few hours even, I've heard another sound very much like the one this music box makes. Was, wirklich? Yes, it's a familiar sound. Was, wirklich? I was just thinking exactly the same thing. Ich erinnere mich nicht daran, worum es gerade geht. Dann, also. It's all pointing to one single answer now. Prosecution demands that my Japanese friend presents proof now. Würde ich gerne. Ich weiß es halt wirklich nicht. Also ich wollte jetzt das als Beweis nutzen, today's paper. Aber wir haben aus der Zeitung tatsächlich kein Geräusch gehört, glaube ich. Aber meine Idee wäre es trotzdem immer noch. Gilt das Case Notes? Steht noch irgendwas drin, was ich vergessen habe? Ich glaube nicht. Die Geschichte macht auch keine Geräusche. Blutproben machen auch keine Geräusche. Aber... Ach, ja klar, wir haben es ja im Courtroom gehört. Weil hin und her gemorst wird. Obviously. Also kann es immer noch. Darf ich das verwenden? Today's Paper, Counsel? Das ist richtig, okay. The headline is Pawnbroker Parodies and Pig Purse Plunder. Highly supportive of your case. No, my lord. I was hoping you'd look at it further a little down the page. Further down? Ministry mole. Classified secrets may have been leaked overseas from Ministry of Justice. Yes, this is a very serious matter being investigated at the highest level, I understand. Further international transmissions along supposedly secure lines are somehow being intercepted and leaked to various other countries. Zum Beispiel Russland. Of course. Drill number 5, your input please. Stop. Oh, me sir? Whatever's the matter. You told the court before that you worked at the same communication station as Mr. Graydon, did you not? Yes, that's correct. At the particular station where you work deals with government communications and newspaper reports? Oh, yes, we're not your run-of-the-mill communication station at all. Our work is extremely important. Then tell me, is this not a very familiar sound? Hmm? You don't mean to say... Is it... That's right, madam. It bears more than a passing resemblance to the sound made by your telegraph machine as you tap it. I believe it's called Morse code. But I don't believe it. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to leaking telegrams from government departments, there could be nobody more perfectly placed than a highly skilled communications officer. Are you suggesting that the music box disc contains stolen government secrets in Morse code? Genau das möchte ich doch behaupten an dieser Stelle. But this is high treason, Council, deserving of capital punishment. Too much new vocabulary. What is this treason? What is capital punishment? The sorts of words I'd have expected you to know. Ja, tatsächlich. For sovereign governments, confidential information, hostile nations would surely pay almost any price. Yes, and on that night 2 months ago, there was the very negotiation that was taking place inside the omnibus. Das geht ja in ganz abgefahrene Richtung hier. Wie kam denn der Mason daran? Das wäre die viel größere Frage jetzt gerade für mich. In which case, who has stolen that information in the first place must surely have been beside himself with worry. Because if the disc were to be discovered before it found its way out of the country, it would reveal an act of high treason, punishable by death. So the culprit had no choice but to retrieve it. In order to do that, he would have to gain entry to the pawnbrokery illegally in the middle of the night. Because the article left behind by Mr. McGillet would incriminate him too much if it got into the wrong hands. Isn't that right, Mr. Graydon? You think I've been stealing government secrets? Preposterous, absolutely preposterous. So in response to the defense accusation, you claim complete innocence, do you? Of course I do. Here to stand here in silence while that pretentious foreign lawyer has been prattling away.
Objection!
Then by all means, counter the charges, sir. The prosecution demands the witness testifies in response to the accusations brought by the defense. Delighted, I'm sure. Gott, shit. Das hat sich in Richtung entwickelt, die ich so nicht kommen sehen habe. Die bestimmt alle Fälle miteinander verbinden wird. Vor allem, weil der russische Typ auch mit drin hängen, auf jeden Fall. Der wird vielleicht auch der erste Fall sogar noch mit drin hängen, ne? Den haben wir auch jetzt nicht endgültig aufgeklärt. Also im Sinne von, warum die Frau damals dann doch nicht bestraft wurde. Warum sie noch mit dem Richter geredet hat, da gab es ja noch irgendwas, was wir nicht mehr mitbekommen haben. Alles sehr, sehr interessant, aber mehr davon sehen wir dann wohl beim nächsten Mal. Ich hoffe, euch hat diese Folge gefallen. Lasst mir gerne einen Kommentar da und dann bis dann. Ciao.